an area there which needs investigation because another Sphinx could be there. And I showed him, pointed out where it was, and he says, we've never, as far as he knows, no one's ever explored for another Sphinx in that area. I says, well, maybe I can talk to Dr. Hawass, Zaya Hawass, and tell him about it. But he said, no, he's in America at the moment. But his archaeologist friend named Mark Lerner, who probably a lot of your listeners heard of, had mapped out the Giza Plateau, and he'd just been finished working there, and that afternoon was going back to America. So I asked Adele, how can I contact him? Can I just tell him what I think I found? So he gave me his mobile phone number, and I started talking about another Sphinx. And this doctor, Mark Lerner, was quite adamant, and he says, who am I? And I said, am I an archaeologist? He says, no. And he says, no, there's no other Sphinx on the Giza Plateau. And it hung up abruptly. So I've got to go to America anyway in a couple of hours' time. I don't want to discuss it. So I'm sitting there hung up and started talking to Adele, sitting in his office. And about half an hour later, in stormed a guy who I recognise as this Mark Lerner into Adele's office. And he started shouting at him in Arabic. And I thought, well, what the hell's going on? And he was shouting at this Adele, and he stormed out.
He was probably pointing at you the whole time.
Yeah, I didn't know. It was all Arabic. So I said to Adele, what's he grumbling? What's going on? And Adele was a bit red in the face from this guy. I mean, Adele was quite an important man, and someone to scream at him like this, he didn't like it. But this guy, Mark Lerner, was a good friend of Zaya Hawass, who was in charge of everything, so obviously he could say what he wanted to.
Right.
And Adele said he was grumbling at him because I shouldn't have given him the phone number. So I thought, well,
right.
He didn't have to say that on the phone about the grumbling, or Adele shouldn't give me the number. And for him to storm into the office and started screaming at him when he's supposed to be going back to America, it seems there was more to it. Maybe, I've got to say maybe because, I can't say for sure, perhaps he didn't want another Sphinx found.
Right, they got a lot of stuff invested in there being only one Sphinx, yeah.
Exactly, because if another Sphinx is found, then all the work that's been done about the Sphinx could be thrown out the window, and they might find that that Sphinx is a lot older and a lot of things that maybe the Egyptians hadn't built all the pyramids of the Sphinx. We don't know. Anyhow, I later contacted Zaya Hawass, and I told him about the Sphinx, but again, he showed no interest. But something happened, because a few weeks after that, Adele was relieved of his post as director of Giza Pyramids. Now, was it a coincidence, or was it because he was friendly with me?
Right.
I don't know. At this time, well, recently, a friend of mine, a colleague named Joseph Westlake, who's helped me write my book called Arkquest, we've written a 20-page manuscript about the actual second Sphinx. We call it the second Sphinx, with pictures and illustrations. And we're now trying to get a university, an institute, to apply, someone who's connected with archaeology, to apply for a permit from the SCA to investigate the area with ground-penetrated radar, because that way you can see what's under the sand at this place, and that way you could actually see it without digging, because they wouldn't let us dig or let them dig, but they'd let them use ground penetrated to investigate it. And I met an Italian who I'm quite friendly with, who's got a company that has all that equipment in Italy, but to get it over to Egypt, he'll need a permit.
Right, because if you take that stuff over there and don't have a permit, they won't even let you in the country.
Yeah, my friend is named Giovanni, He said he went over to Israel a few years ago with a guy to do some work looking for the actual Mount Horeb, and he took his equipment with him, and he never had a permit, and the Israelis nearly confiscated the whole lot, and he wouldn't go anywhere unless he's got an actual permit.
Wow. Okay. At this point, I feel I should mention I've already read Jerry's book. It's called Arkquest. So not only will you be able to get the book on his profile page, but there's also going to be a link to the 20-page article that he wrote with his friend. It's on the Universal Spectrum forum. There's a whole page, has all the photos, all the information. You can go and check that out if you want, and you can also purchase the Arkquest book. But where does the story go from there?
Okay, there's a girl, I say girl, she was older than me, named Janet, and she's been helping me quite a lot. She lives over in Spain, lives about 20 miles away from me, and she's helped me quite a lot and very interested, and she knew this Joyce Morgan and everything else, and she knows all what was going on, and she really believed that I'm going to find this cave and everything else. But she knew a psychic in England named Douglas Ballard, and she just suggested I should email him and have a chat and get contact with him. But the guy never replied. But a few months later, she phoned me. Well, she phoned me about a year later, and she says I'm going to contact Douglas again. In fact, she's going to see him. And she said, do I have any questions for him? And I told her there was nothing I wanted to ask the guy. But if she felt differently, she could talk to him what he wanted, because he didn't answer my email. And I thought he was a bit of a flake, so I didn't know. So I said, you do what you want. But she called me again later, said that she contacted this guy, Douglas. And he was very surprised, because the day she called, he was looking through a lot of his junk mail, and he'd actually deleted one of put it in his junk file, one of the old emails from me, and he didn't respond. And he noted it was some time ago, and he said, tell Jerry I'm sorry, I haven't responded to it. But she asked him a couple of questions. She said to him, will the Ark of the Covenant be found? And if so, where should the temple be built to house it? Because we didn't know, where it would go or anything else. And he said to her that there were two arks. One's an original and one is the Ark of Moses. And the other's going to be a copy. But Jerry, he says, is going to locate the original, the Ark of Moses. I thought, that sounds interesting. And she went on to say that the contents of the box were ancient writings of something which he had taken. Well, he couldn't have time to see what it was. But he says that tell him that to know what he's got to do with it, tell him that the answer to the second question, that the ark will never be in a permanent position, that it will wander. Just tell him the word wander, and Jerry might know what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm. Wander, like wandering. Okay.
Wandering, yeah. So immediately it dawned on me what he meant by the word wander, as that which could surely be what the ark would do when it would be found. Its purpose, this is what I come up with, and its purpose should be it would help this planet. I mean, the ark hasn't been found for thousands of years, and if it was probably found or it didn't get lost, it would still be in the temple. But obviously it wasn't meant to be in the temple, and that's why it disappeared. And it should help the planet. Naturally, it would first have to be authenticated to make sure it is the Ark of Moses, of the Exodus, and that could only be done, presumably, by radiocarbon dating a grain of wood from one of the poles, because it had two poles on it. They wouldn't be able to touch the Ark naturally, but they could probably identify when the tree, with the acacia tree, actually was died or was in existence, and if that happened around at the time of Moses, or we still don't know the exact time, but a few thousand years, then it could be the actual ark. So if we do find a gold box and an ark in the shape of an ark, shaped like the one in Exodus, then it would certainly have to be authenticated.
And it'd be interesting because what you said earlier about the box being built, and then going to Atlantis, Lemurria, then Atlantis, then going over to Egypt, it may be far older than, the time of Moses. I mean, that would be interesting.
Well, there's a possible chance that would be, because if Moses, like I said before, took a box out of the pyramid when the pyramids were built, and it was probably on the land of these ancients, whatever they were.
Right.
It would be thousands of years old. It could have been comfort. It could have been celestial. We don't know, but that would be, if it is, and that would be the original ark. And what Moses made was a template, because he had to make a box which would hold which was more important, because the more important thing about the Ark of the Covenant is not the Ark itself, it's the contents.
Right, exactly.
So
there may have been a series of boxes going down through time, and when one eventually gets worn out, the stones would outlast the gold and the wood and stuff like that, and the poles, so they would just make another one and another one and another one.
Well, as I say, the ark when it's found should one, then it won't have a permanent resting place, but it would have to be displayed around the world in secured buildings, and besides the religious people, there will be those who are scientifically interested in it, and those who are just curious, and everybody will want to see it. Okay.
Right.
No doubt there'll be endless queues standing in line to see this, and a lot of publicity will create even more people to be attracted to go there who even didn't know what the ark was. But there'd be no admission fee.
Right.
However, a lot of people probably get some spiritual inspiration from being in its presence, and they will have the opportunity to make donations, voluntary donations, if they want, and I believe they will. And that money would go into some sort of properly organised, non-profitable global banking organisation, far out of my realms. It has to be done properly from governments and all that, because when the ark's found, there'd be a lot of problems with it if it's not under security of governments or whatever it is. And the revenue from what the ark would bring in from the donations would be enormous. We're talking of millions of dollars would be poured into it.
Right.
And that would all be used for medical research, for cancer, AIDS, MS, and other diseases of global scale. Also for global warming, research, finding other and when there's a major disaster on the planet, there'd be money available to help it. Even for places where people are dying, a lot of them dying out in Africa from lack of food, because there's no vegetation and there's droughts around there. That money would be used for all that. So that would be, many uses would be used for funding, and it'll also help to get probably the religious people more together, because the ark was mentioned not only in the Old and the New Testament, but it was also in the Quran. So they all know about the ark, and hopefully it would bring them more peaceful matters together, especially now in the Middle East. A lot of problems out there. But when the ark goes from capital to capital, before it leaves one capital, so people could see what the ark actually